Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, Douglas Ross, the leader of the Tories in Scotland, has got a bit of a fundamental dichotomy going on. South of the border, people will be voting against the Tories. They'll be pushing Labour into power, and that will, really cut the Tory majority. North of the border, people will still be voting for Labour, but the Tories are likely to pick up votes and seats. And it goes to show what a weird next election will be, the general election that is. Because you're going to have this two opposite voting effects for the same party. In England, people will be voting against the Tories. And in Scotland, they'll be voting against the SNP. And that is why they're going to lose a lot of seats in England, gain seats in Scotland, and give a very, very skewed kind of base to power for the Scottish Tory party. It's going to be very weird, the Westminster party anyway. But of course, this is going to be thus. I don't think Labour are going to do as well as people think. Certainly there will be a Labour government, and the majority of seats in Scotland may well be Labour. But I don't think the majority will be as big as people are thinking, because Keir Starmer is a bit of a turn-off. So Labour will pick up from Tory seats, especially in the north of England, the red lines, which went blue for Boris. But then the Tories got rid of Boris, and I think they're going to pay the price, and that'll all revert back to Labour. But let's take a look and see what's going on and why Douglas Ross thinks people haven't quite decided just yet. He might be right. Here goes. So, voters will decide closer to the election, says Douglas Ross. I think a lot of voters have decided already. They don't know who they're going to vote for, but they're certainly voting against the Tories in England and against the SNP in Scotland. Where they lay their votes is a different matter. The Scottish Tory leader said he will do everything he can to keep Rishi Sunak in the job of Prime Minister. Oh dear, I think he's a bit delusional. I think that boat has sailed. I don't think Sunak can remain Prime Minister. There's people in his own party who don't want him to be PM now. There's whispers, but whispers will soon become murmurs, and then they'll become shouts. And he'll go. But that's okay. He can take his non-tax-paying, billionaire, red card-owning backside off to America, where his financial heart and soul lie already. Scottish Conservative leader Douglas Ross has said voters will develop their opinions closer to the general election as Labour leads in the polls. The general election could be as little as 4 or 5 months away. So they better start thinking about it, don't you think, Douglas? He said the next vote is expected in the coming 12 months, with many of the SNP seats predicted to be taken by UK Labour, and many expecting Sir Keir Starmer to be the next Westminster leader. And to be honest, I think most people who watch what's going on will understand that. They will see that Sir Keir Starmer will be the next PM. He won't necessarily be PM for long. It could well be that they use him as a sacrificial goat, really. They'll use his moderate view to get them into power, but he won't be there long, and then there'll be a coup d'etat within the Labour Party, forcing him out and putting someone very much more radical into power. Let's hope it's not a female of a long, gingery-haired persuasion, because Angela is absolutely awful, as well as being thick. But can you imagine her dealing with international politics? The woman is a loon. Anyway, Mr. Ross, who plans to stand down from his Moray seat at Westminster to focus on Holyrood, said he is confident his party can make gains north of the border. I believe he can. Echoing the same sentiment from the Prime Minister earlier this month. I think north of the border the Tories definitely will do well, but only because there's a lot of people in the SNP, or SNP voters, who would just go, I'm not voting for them anymore. I've seen what's happening. I've seen around Scotland. I've seen the awfulness. And so they'll put their vote elsewhere. And the Tories are bound to pick up some of these. And it doesn't take much in the sort of the closer seats for the Tories to swing in and gain a seat from the SNP. Labour, of course, will be the big winners of the night. The leader pointed to a poll by consultancy Stonehaven last month, which put the party on 11 seats north of the border, rising from 6. I mean, nearly doubling your seat count and the votes with it across the whole of Scotland. Goes to show how bad and how much in disarray the SNP truly are. But across the UK, if the poll was realised, Labour would win 402 seats on its way to a 154 seat majority in the Commons. And I'm not kidding you, Rishi Sunak go out tomorrow. He could stop all immigration to this country. He could cure cancer. He could cut the NHS waiting list. And he could halve the tax rate. And he still wouldn't win the election. It's far too late. The toxicity is built up to a point where the patient is dying, effectively. Speaking to the PA news agency, Mr. Ross said, I think opinions will develop closer to an election. He says, and as we get closer to that election, people will look to their various options. And they'll look at Sir Keir Starmer and the Labour Party and question what does he actually stand for. Well, he doesn't stand for anything. He's a very flaccid, warm milk kind of guy, isn't he? He's the comforting agent of the Labour Party, but they won't want anyone scary leading them going into an election. But I think on the back end of the election, you'll get someone. There'll be that challenge, and you'll get someone neo-Marxist, in fact, probably very, very left, leading the Labour government with a huge majority. So expect chaos and poverty to follow anytime soon. Don't get me wrong, I don't like the Tories, I don't like Labour, I don't like any party. I think they're all corrupt. But Marxism is always a bad thing, Anyway, he said, I think it would be very difficult for people to tell you right now what a Labour government is going to do if they were to be elected. I don't think anyone knows. I don't think Labour know what they're going to do if they're elected. They will look at the SNP and see that's a party that will not be focused on their real priorities, and they will be focused on independence above everything else. Well, they have been so far, and that's why the NHS is falling apart, the schools are falling apart, the infrastructure is falling apart, everything is falling apart because the SNP can only look at independence. It's the only thing they've got. That and stupid voters, people, very stupid supporters who seem to think it's a good idea. But anyway, asked if he accepts the likely outcome of the election will be Sir Keir Starmer entering Downing Street, Mr. Ross says, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure Rishi Sunak remains as Prime Minister. But there's very little you can do, is there, Mr. Ross? Mr. Ross first went into Westminster in the 2017 election, with his career spanning one of the most turbulent periods in modern British political history. Since taking his seat, there's been a pandemic, a cost of living crisis, Brexit, and 4 prime ministers, including the protracted downfall of Boris Johnson and the quickfire replacement of Liz Truss with Mr. Sunak. And asked how he believes the period we remembered in political history, Mr. Ross conceded it had been difficult. Well, not as difficult for the Tory party in London as it has been for Humza Yousaf in Scotland. And his was only 9 months. He's had all that in 9 months. My God, how bad is it? Poor old Scotland. This is what you got to put up with. But there he is. I think he's delusional if he thinks Rishi Sunak is going to get in and stay. And I think he's fairly deluded if he thinks it's anything other than a route for Labour. For him to say, people will decide nearer the time. Yeah, but they're not going to really push for the Tories, are they? But the trouble is, there's no opposition. You've got, like I say, a weak opposition in Labour, who are likely to be the next government. But look at them. There's no talent there, is there? Anyway, I shall finish there and come up. But it is quite frightening what we're likely to get. Now, whenever the next election is, and be it May, be it October, be it February 2025, which personally I think it needs to be, I think the Tories need to hold on that long simply to just keep the SNP in check and not let them try and force through the GRR bill again, because they've already said that if Labour go in, they'll represent it on the hope that Labour won't use Section 35, which they may not well do, which really does endanger women and children in Scotland for the sake of political ideology. It's very weird, isn't it? So maybe keeping the Tory government until the last possible day is the answer. But I think I think it's far too late now. Whatever happens, there's no chance. I think of the Tories winning the next election. All they can hope for is a much reduced Labour majority. But hey, who knows? It's going to be a weird election with some very weird results. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please keep up. There is another video coming, at least one more. I may be finishing after the next one because I think I'm getting the we need to go and do something look from my wife. So I think there's probably one more video to go today. But thank you very much for watching this one. Do please hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Bye.